Thank you for joining us. Have you ever wondered why you enjoy the things you enjoy? Why you think the things you think and do the things you do? Why you are the person that you are? These are all questions that you ask frequently when studying psychology. As a psychology graduate, I've had a deep fascination with what makes us the people that we are today, and a large part of that is our sexualities and our sexual preferences.
Today we will be addressing the psychology of sexual voyeurism. Voyeurism is a fascinating topic to explore, because we all, to varying degrees, practice voyeurism in relative frequency, whether we know it or not. Voyeurism is defined by the Cambridge Dictionary as the activity of gaining pleasure from secretly watching other people in sexual situations, or more generally, from watching other people's private lives. Reality TV, CCTV streams, or even porn can all be classified as voyeuristic activities, and therefore we are almost all guilty of participating in varying degrees of voyeurism, whether we know it or not. Our modern obsession with reality TV shows such as Love Island, Big Brother or Drag Race shows that it's become increasingly profitable to offer a fly-on-the-wall perspective on one another's lives, and rising viewership with many of these shows would suggest that the public demand for more voyeuristic shows and experiences is clearly on the rise. Now, this channel isn't about your obsession with Love Island, but it is important to understand the basic voyeurism and its presence and appeal in modern society in order to better understand sexual voyeurism and the ways in which it manifests. Duff 2018 makes the argument that voyeurism is often the response to some degree of stress. It's a way of relinquishing pressure by living vicariously through others and experiencing their thrills whilst also mitigating the chance of displeasure by relinquishing any responsibility for what happens. This might be as simple as enjoying the ups and downs of a stranger's relationship on TV, feeling a part of their excitement without the risk of heartbreak when it all goes wrong. Barra 2009 addresses the rising popularity of reality TV shows as evidence for the rapid increase in our voyeuristic needs as consumers, arguing that there is an abundant positive relationship between our consumption of reality TV and our voyeuristic demand as viewers. So where does this relate to sex? Well, as mentioned in the definition, sexual voyeurism is the act of gaining gratification from watching or witnessing sexual interactions without being actively involved, and often centres around the participant being unaware of your presence. Of course, there are any number of scenarios where that dynamic is an incredibly concerning one, and we will address the dangers of non-consensual sexual voyeurism later on in this video. But for now, we will be discussing voyeurism from a purely consensual perspective, where all parties are aware and comfortable. Now, the opposite of voyeurism, and an essential factor for voyeurism to occur consensually, is exhibitionism, the act of gaining gratification for being watched or witnessed. Voyeurism, and the dichotomy it has to exhibitionism, is an interesting relationship, offering a similar dynamic of opposites to that of sexual masochism and sexual sadism. The two exist codependent of one another, like flip sides of the same coin. Without those who thrive off the idea of being watched, there is no room for a watcher, and without a budding audience, the exhibitionist has no ability to show themselves off. This kind of symbiotic relationship often exists between opposing fetishes or preferences, where the existence of one justifies that of the other. So, what exactly is voyeurism? Similar to sexual sadism and sexual masochism, voyeurism can be viewed as both a disorder and a paraphilia, depending on the way in which it manifests and the degree to which it affects the quality of life or the lives of those around you. The vast majority of sexual voyeurs do not suffer with voyeurism disorder, but it's still important to address as its own issue before we can accurately explore voyeurism as a paraphilia or preference. While sexual voyeurism is the urge to watch an unsuspecting individual participating in some kind of sexual activity, whether that be intercourse or as little as undressing, and can be sufficiently stimulated through roleplay or consensual voyeuristic arrangements, voyeurism disorder is when those urges become insatiable and the individual must act them out with or without the observed person's consent. Most voyeurs do not have voyeuristic disorder, and it often isn't until the individual is arrested that a doctor will diagnose the disorder itself. But diagnosis can also be given if an individual expresses a great degree of distress has been caused as a result of not catering to voyeuristic desires. Voyeurism often occurs during adolescence and early adulthood. Some degree of voyeurism is common, more around boys and men, but increasingly among women as well. Society often regards mild forms of this behaviour as normal when involving consenting adults. In order for a doctor to diagnose voyeurism disorder, the individual must have been repeatedly and intensely aroused by their voyeuristic behaviour or experienced prolonged distress as a result of those thoughts and feelings for at least 6 months. It's also important to note that the current medical treatment for this disorder consists of psychotherapy, support groups, or occasionally antidepressants. As mentioned previously, most voyeurs do not suffer with voyeuristic disorder, but rather experience the preference as paraphilia, a sexual kink or fetish which has the potential to cause harm or distress if the practitioner does not do so safely. Voyeurs often dismiss any guilt or responsibility for their acts due to not being physically or actively involved, rationalising their behaviour as no harm, no foul, despite their unconsensual manifestation being classified as illegal in many countries. So, how does one become attracted to voyeuristic behaviour, and how does kink represent itself across the different demographics? Current research suggests that men are more likely to identify with voyeuristic tendencies, and in cases where acts equate to illegal behaviour, perpetrators often tend to harbour feelings of inadequacy or a lack of social or sexual skills, although this of course is not necessarily representative of those who explore the kink in a strictly consensual or secure manner. There are of course many different opinions on the root cause of voyeurism, although many point to the initial feelings developing in early childhood before the age of 15. One such argument from Freudian psychoanalytic studies places an emphasis on childhood abuse and harbouring traumatic childhood memories. Other theories suggest that individuals may reinforce voyeuristic experiences through positive reinforcement. Perhaps they watch somebody from afar when experiencing their first exploration of masturbation, and that positive reinforcements of climaxing through that means led to the development of that attraction. In this case, an individual who seeks sexual gratification repeatedly from engaging in voyeuristic acts throughout their adolescence and early development may then become dependent on those circumstances to induce climax or sexual arousal. As therapeutic and medical treatment of voyeurism often varies in its rate of success, many individuals will not seek to change their antics, but rather to find safe and mutual ways to explore them, whether that be role-playing with their partner, or as explained in my previous video on the psychology of cuckoldry, they may garner a degree of sexual gratification from watching their partner play with others. So how prevalent is the kink and its associated behaviour? One study surrounding exhibitionistic and voyeuristic behaviour in a Swedish National Population Survey by Langstrom and Sito 2006 explored the prevalence and correlates of self-reported sexual arousal from the exhibitionistic behaviour of exposing one's genitals to a stranger or the voyeuristic behaviour of spying on others having sex. The study used a representative national sample of 2,450 18 to 60-year-olds and discovered that a total of 76 people, 3.1%, reported at least one example of experiencing exhibitionistic pleasure, whereas 191 people, or 7.7% of the population, found at least one example of sexual gratification from voyeuristic experiences. Interestingly, both paraphilia-like behaviour were associated positively with being male and having more psychological problems, lower satisfaction in life, greater drug and drink use, and a greater sexual interest and activity in general, including more sexual partners, higher consumption of porn, and more frequent masturbation. Of course, this behaviour doesn't have to be detrimental if it's explored in a safe and consensual manner, but all parties are knowingly participating. When, for example, you pair a voyeuristic person with an exhibitionist, there is ample opportunity for both parties to experience sexual gratification from their partner's kink. It's due to this dichotomy that many swingers clubs and sex venues include glass-walled rooms and welcome newcomers who enjoy watching without being actively involved. Voyeurism also has the potential, when explored consensually, to allow individuals to live vicariously through others, to experience things they would have perhaps otherwise lacked the confidence to explore for themselves. Or in other examples, it may allow individuals who are not comfortable with their sexuality to feel as if they can explore their sexual preferences and fantasies without the associated guilt that they might otherwise experience. Voyeurism has the potential to be enjoyable or even beneficial for many people, but it has to be something that's discussed and explored with mutual consent and agreement. For many people, watching sex can bring more gratification than actually engaging in it themselves. And for many couples, it can offer a useful insight into how to adequately pleasure one another. One example of this might be the voyeur hiding out of sight and watching their partner. Even though their partner knows they're being watched, they are more likely to act in a natural manner, and if a voyeur is observant, they may learn the intricacies of what brings their partner the most pleasure, without the necessity of asking directly. Now, sex shows are another great way of experiencing voyeuristic activities, whether that be viewing a professional sex show at a swingers club or somewhere like Amsterdam, or asking your friends or partner to participate in sexual activity whilst you watch. As long as all parties are consenting and the full extent of the engagement has been discussed and agreed upon prior, then there is a lot of room for potential fun and sexual discovery. We can learn so much from watching others, and those who are perhaps less sexually experienced often use this as a means of exploring the variety and diversity of pleasure. Consent and communication are the most fundamental aspects of any sexual experience, and voyeurism is no exception. Exploring these kinks without fully discussing them with the recipient is both illegal and wrong, and it has the potential to cause lasting psychological damage, not to mention landing you with a jail sentence. So please discuss this stuff with your partners. Always discuss your fantasies with your partner or your partners, and make sure that everybody is comfortable and happy before exploring them together. Now, voyeurism isn't something that I'm personally into, although I am somewhat of an exhibitionist, and so I've done a lot of live shows and sex shows and stuff at swingers clubs, and it's always interesting to see the people who are into voyeurism change from their normal demeanour into suddenly being this observer, this watcher. It's a fascinating dichotomy, it really is. Anyway, I apologise if my voice isn't sounding like its normal self. I actually have COVID right now. I'm currently recording in a coat and my boxes because I feel like shit. But I do apologise for my voice if I sound particularly raspy this time. I'll attempt to be a little bit clearer in the next video, and hopefully I will have recovered from COVID by then. As always, if you ever have any questions or you have any suggestions for future videos, please drop me in the comment section down below, or drop me a message on Instagram at mindbodyandsoul with underscores between each word. I hope this video has been enjoyable, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Much love.